In recent days, since the inauguration of Canada's new Prime Minister Mark Carney, trade relations between the United States and Canada have reached a critical point. The province of Ontario has taken the unprecedented step of announcing a 5% surcharge on electricity exports to the United States. This could lead to trade repercussions worth $110 billion. Ontario Premier Doug Ford said it was a direct response to President Trump's recent decision to double tariffs on Canadian aluminum and steel. "I sincerely regret the consequences for the American people, who did not start this trade war. Only one person is responsible for this: President Trump," Ford said. Experts estimate that the new surcharge will affect about 1 million households in Minnesota, New York, and Michigan. The average American consumer's bill is expected to increase by about $100 a month, while Ontario will receive an additional $300 to $400 a day in revenue. The move marks a new era in Canadian relations under Prime Minister Mark Carney. Experts say Canada is demonstrating a willingness to take decisive action in response to aggressive U.S. trade policy. The situation is reminiscent of recent events in relations between Russia and the former Soviet republics, where economic leverage was also used as a tool of pressure. However, in the North American context, the consequences could be even more significant, given the deep integration of the U.S. and Canadian economies. Analysts suggest that the move could be just the beginning of a broader strategy by Carney to reshape trade relations with the U.S. The new Prime Minister, who has extensive experience in the financial sector, appears willing to use economic leverage to protect Canadian interests. "We hope that these measures will force the American administration to reconsider its position," a Canadian government spokesman said. "Our goal is to restore fair trading conditions between our countries." Ontario Premier Ford announced unprecedented measures in the trade war with the U.S. by introducing a 25% package of retaliatory measures totaling $110 billion annually. "We are the two strongest, richest, and safest nations in the world," Ford stressed after a meeting with the governors of the 3 states. "We need to build relationships on our strengths, not our weaknesses." Ontario also took additional measures. American alcohol was pulled from the shelves of the Alcohol Control Board, and American companies were deprived of the right to participate in government procurement. These steps complement the federal response. The $30 electricity surcharge is implemented through a directive from Energy Secretary Stephen Lexy to the Independent Electric System Operator. Any generator selling electricity in the United States must charge a tariff response fee, which will be collected monthly by the ASO on behalf of the government. The response of the American states was quick. Many residents of the states are already suffering from rising utility bills. Michigan expressed concern about the reliability of the power grid. Matt Helms of the State Public Service Commission noted that the disruption of electricity flows between the United States and Canada could make both countries more vulnerable to large-scale grid failures. In New York, officials criticized the federal tariffs, calling them poorly thought out from the start. The situation is reminiscent of events around the unstable territory in Eastern Europe, where economic measures were also used as a tool of geopolitical pressure. Experts note that the current conflict between the United States and Canada could have long-term consequences for the energy security of both countries. Recent events in trade relations between Canada and the United States, especially after Ontario's decision to impose a surcharge on electricity exports, have escalated tensions. President Trump responded harshly, calling Canada abusive and abandoning Canadian resources. Premier Ford responded to the threats by suggesting that Canada consider cutting hydroelectric generation and urging other provinces to use their energy leverage. Alberta supplies about 4 million barrels of oil to the United States every day. You want to talk about leverage? This is an instant tipping point. Americans will lose their heads when gasoline prices rise by 90 cents to $1 per gallon, Ford said, addressing Alberta Premier Daniel Smith. However, Smith categorically rejected this proposal. Alberta will never accept such a ridiculous and suicidal idea. This is about hundreds of thousands of jobs, almost instantly, she said. Against the backdrop of these events, power is transferring to the new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, who won the election as the leader of the Liberal Party with an impressive 86% of the vote. Carney, the former governor of the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England, takes the reins of power at a difficult time when the White House is creating chaos in the global economy. The situation is complicated by the fact that the Trump administration continues to impose new tariffs. After a 5% tariff on most Canadian and Mexican goods, additional duties followed on Canadian lumber and dairy products. U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lute signaled that economic leverage would be used to force Canada into compliance, causing widespread outrage amid growing energy demand and increasing environmental regulations. This makes the situation even more difficult for Canada's new leadership. Here is the latest news from Canada, where a serious political standoff with the U.S. is unfolding. Newly elected Prime Minister Mark Carney made clear in his victory speech the country's position on U.S. trade policy. Canada will never be part of America in any way. We didn't ask for this fight, but Canadians are always ready when someone challenges them, in hockey and in trade. Canada will win, Carney said to a standing ovation. The Prime Minister reiterated that retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods will remain in place until the U.S. shows respect and makes real commitments to free and fair trade. All tariff revenues will go toward protecting Canadian workers. Carney, who has extensive experience in financial crisis management, presented an ambitious economic reform program. He plans to revise the Liberal plans to raise the capital gains tax, cancel the consumer carbon tax, and use the federal budget for major infrastructure projects. His plan to split the federal budget into two parts, an operating budget that must be balanced and a capital expenditure budget, has attracted special attention. We can give ourselves much more than Donald Trump is offering. This will not be business as usual. We will have to do things we have never imagined before and do them at an unprecedented speed, Carney emphasized. However, the new Prime Minister will have to solve a difficult political problem. The Liberal Party has less than 50% of the seats in the House. The opposition may force an early election in the spring, risking leaving the country with an interim government in the midst of a trade war. Alternatively, Carney may try to govern with the support of at least one opposition party. We present to you the important news of the day: the sharp deterioration in trade relations between Canada and the United States, as well as the political struggle surrounding the new Prime Minister, Mark Carney. After a long period of decline, the Liberals are regaining public support. Threats from Trump and the nomination of Carney have unexpectedly strengthened the Liberal Party's position. However, the Conservatives are not giving up and are actively campaigning against the new Prime Minister. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has made serious accusations against Carney, demanding full disclosure of his financial assets and business interests. Special attention is being paid to Carney's role in moving the Brookfield headquarters to New York last year. In response, Carney reminded the public of how Poilievre threatened the head of the Bank of Canada, Tiff Macklem, in 2022. According to the Prime Minister, such actions undermine the stability of the financial system during a period of serious economic uncertainty. Carney also criticized the Conservatives' approach to climate policy. Against this background, Ontario's decision to raise tariffs on electricity exports to the United States by 25% looks especially significant. This step could significantly affect not only bilateral relations, but also global energy markets. Mark Carney's actions as Prime Minister are becoming a turning point for Canada's future. Stay with us and follow developments. Subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with the latest news. Thank you for watching. For more information on this topic and other important news, don't forget to click the subscribe button and turn on notifications.